Hello and welcome to our 13 spooky idioms for Halloween. And so I thought, yeah, 13 would be a good number to do given how sinister it is and how reminiscent of Halloween it is. So sorry for any Shiskadecaphobics out there. Anyway, um, I thought this number was nice and creepy and would be nice for Halloween. And so if you've been watching this channel for at least a year, you might recognize some of these idioms because I've done several videos about uh, idioms with uh, disturbing origins and idioms with creepy origins and whatnot. And so I brought a couple of them back into this mix of idioms here. And of course, I also gathered a bunch of new ones to make it extra creepy, extra spooky for Halloween. And so when we're talking about Halloween idioms, we're talking idioms that remind us of Halloween, that have things in common with it, such as black cats, ghouls, goblins, witches, and all the rest. And so of course, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of creepy idiom, a spooky idiom for Halloween is, of course, the witching hour. And what is the witching hour? Of course, we use it to talk about, normally we say it starts at midnight or so, because the theory is that the supernatural forces are most likely to will appear at those times. And a lot of we call it the witching hour because we suppose that witches are working their magic at this time, because again, supernatural forces and all that. And but of course, in everyday parlance, we talk about the witching hour as a time that's super late at night, uh, a time that's in the middle of the night, right when the weird things start happening, right when weird things might come up. And of course, it comes from witches themselves. Again, we're blaming them for this, but that's nothing new. So, yeah, the witching hour, that's the first one I wanted to talk about. And honestly, I think it's very much qualifies as an idiom because we're not just talking about witches anymore with it. We're talking about super late at night when everything is dark and um, we might, yeah, expect things to appear. And this does remind me of Halloween, like after everybody's done trick or treating and everybody's gone home, a lot of times that ends up feeling like the witching hour, especially because there's people out there up to no good looking to vandalize at that time, which brings to mind the expression of to paint the town red, which by the way had nothing to do with blood originally. So that one didn't really make the cut for these spooky idioms. Um, but it did involve a bunch of vandalism. So I figured it's worth mentioning here. And so my next Halloween based idiom is, of course, skeletons in the closet. And yeah, that's a creepy one, skeleton in the closet. And what we mean by that is, of course, that people have secrets from their past that they want to keep hidden. And what it actually comes from is in the United Kingdom. Once upon a time, it was a long time ago, um, that medical schools would actually get their skeletons and cadavers and whatnot from grave grave robbers. Yeah, and so they made it more lucrative to be a grave robber at the time because it wasn't just the things that and the valuables that you're stealing from the grave. You're also stealing the body, so then you can flip it. You can just sell it to a medical school. And why skeletons in the closet? Because when the authorities started cracking down on this and making sure that medical schools were not using um, skeletons and corpses that were stolen by grave robbers, then the faculty at medical schools, aka the doctors, they started actually hiding the skeletons in the closet so nobody would find out that they were really up to no good in their purchasing of the skeletons. So that's where the story comes from. So that's quite a creepy origin. And it's funny to think that medical schools, at least in the UK, used to be using some well, dead bodies that were not approved by anybody, that were not really legal. So that's, yeah, creepy. It makes me have a hard time trusting the faculty there at those schools, doesn't it? Where that's skeletons in the closet and where that comes from. And another very creepy idiom, one that's especially sinister, in fact, for Halloween, is a diehard. And so this also comes from the UK, and a diehard, this goes back to days when, well, a lot of people got hanged for execution. They would get hanged. And this goes predates the technology that people use later on for hanging, um, where where you would actually have uh, the springs drop out of a platform underneath you to snap you down and all of that, break your neck pretty quickly, so then you're dead. Before that, what we had was people, they were well elevated on a little pedestal or even a bucket or something like that. And then um, if you take the stool or the pedestal out from underneath them, then they're just hanging there. And that way did not used to actually kill people quite as fast as one would probably like at that time. And so instead, what they had often was if you were going to be executed, you could actually pay somebody who's usually kind of poor, but pay somebody to actually pull on your ankles and your legs, like pull you down faster to help snap your neck and make your death go more quickly so you wouldn't be hanging there on the noose on the end of it, suffering it for too long of a time. Now, the diehards were the people who wouldn't pay anybody to pull on the lugs or anything, and they would just, yeah, their dying would be harder because it would take a little while longer. And ooh, that's um that's really scary. And of course, today we use it for something much lighter. Like if you're a diehard fan, that means you're a fan who will really go all the way. Like and so a diehard enthusiast, that's more what we put it to mean these days, is someone who is really enthused about something, really a big fan of it, really very interested in it, and they will just keep doing it because of that. Whereas the origins of that expression are so much worse, right? Die Hard actually being from executions. Eek. That's that's a little spooky. And so the next spooky idiom for Halloween is we talk about people being stabbed in the back. We talk about getting stabbed in the back. So to stab someone in the back, that's really, really bad, of course. And what we use it to mean these days is if you get stabbed in the back by someone, then this was someone who you really trusted, and yet um, they betrayed you in a serious way. So that's what getting stabbed in the back is today, is being betrayed by somebody you trusted. But it originates in a much darker place, right? Literally stabbing somebody in the back, that would be, well, a kind of murder, I guess. And eek. So it comes from a very dark place. So I thought this would be nice to add to the spooky idioms for Halloween, and I don't know if that's worse or not quite as bad as the diehards or the skeletons in the closet. But anyway, they all sort of rank really spooky to me. And now, also one thing that comes to mind with Halloweens is cats, especially black cats, of course, but cats on the whole. And we have the expression, the cat got your tongue, as in um, you can't speak. You got nothing to say, right? Did the cat get your tongue because you have nothing to say right now? And oh my God, the origins of this expression are so dark, so creepy. For one, could have been a reference to uh, torture with the cat o' nine tails, right? That whip-looking thing that you can see in the one picture here. So that's really dark if it's reference to cat o' nine tails, which would mean you can't really say anything because you're in too much pain from being tortured, right? And another dark place where this expression can find its roots, it's been supposed that we use this expression "cat got your tongue" because um, because cats might have been fed the tongues of people who were executed or just severely punished and whatnot. And yeah, that's pretty dark too. So either way, whether we're talking cat of nine tails torture or cats actually physically eating your tongue, either way, that's a much darker place than I would like for this expression to come from. But it does qualify it pretty well to be thought of as spooky, and it's a good one for Halloween. Now, another cat idiom is also comes from a scary place, although not so much involving bodily harm. And so if we say let the cat out of the bag, that of course means that we spill a secret that we were supposed to keep secret, but we spilled it. Like we accidentally gave up information that we were supposed to be hiding. So AKA we accidentally spilled a secret. And so where does that come from? Comes from once again long ago, when people were selling pigs and piglets especially, they would come in these canvas bags, in these yeah, big canvas bags, big bags, and so they would put the pigs in this bag. And so how they would scam people sometimes is they would actually put cats in that bag too to make the bag seem like it had a whole lot more piglets in it than it actually had, because of course cats were considered pretty worthless at the time, but the pigs had a lot of value. And so if you wanted to sell somebody six pigs, but get the money for eight pigs from it or nine pigs from it, then you might throw some cats in the bags with the pigs and fool them. And so, where that expression comes from is if you would literally accidentally let a cat out of the bag, then the jig is up. Somebody figured out your damn secret. And so that's why I think it's still fitting that letting the cat out of the bag means spilling a secret accidentally. And yeah, so it's all about pigs, and it's all about uh, people trying to scam other people by selling them a smaller amount of pigs than they were buying, but throwing in a few free kitty cats because they were considered worthless at the time. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty disturbing and goes to the point that people are pretty bad sometimes. And speaking of people, scared stiff is another one that comes to mind as a spooky idiom. And you know that feeling, right? When you're scared stiff, it's like you almost can't move because you're just too scared. And this, of course, is a scene. Well, this is from the movie Scared Stiff, which is, I do believe, more than 60 years old. Um, but I thought this was a good reaction shot. This is what it's like to be scared stiff, right? And yeah, and with this one, I do appreciate this idiom being scared stiff because I know exactly how that feels, right? You just freeze up because you can't really move. And also, it's a pretty creepy idiom because when I think of a stiff, I think of a dead body. So to me, that adds to the creepiness and spookiness factor of scared stiff. But still, it's not the only one we got. We got some more here, and blind as a bat. That's of course when we usually are calling a person blind, saying somebody can't see very well. We will call them blind as a bat. And what's kind of funny about this is, yes, it's true that a lot of bats don't have great vision, so they use their sonar of sorts to find their way around. And the fact is, once upon a time, I debunked this idiom because not all bats are blind. I mean, number one, they got this sonar, this what we would call echolocation. It's where they, well, echolocation, maybe a better way to put it, where you're figuring out things are by sending out little noise and then uh, how soon it bounces back to you tells you how close that thing is and can give you ideas of the direction. So in some way, that's kind of like seeing. And also, some bats are not so blind, actually. Like the bat all the way in the bottom, right under my image. Well, not right under, but below it, you got my image. And then look down, there's the word bat. And then the bat under there, that's a fruit bat. And a lot of them really need to use their vision to go ahead. And a lot of certain species of fruit bats, yeah, they got to use their vision because their sonar doesn't work very well. Like they're not very good at finding their way through echolocation. And yeah, so in fact, it turns out that not all bats are blind. But I did think this one was very good for Halloween because bats are nice and creepy. We think of vampire bats and vampires, of course, turning into bats, and all this is very Halloweeny. And so, yeah, blind as a bat. Not always true, not for all bats, but still nice and creepy, nice and spooky for Halloween. And of course, we also have this expression saved by the bell. If you're saved by the bell, that of course means you sort of get saved by uh time running up or you get out of there. Like, and I bet anybody who's ever been a student can kind of understand what that means. And being saved by the bell, oh thank God, now I can get out of class because the bell just rang. And and of course you might know the TV show by the same name, Saved by the Bell. But this one comes from such a darker place than that. The bell in question, where the saying comes from, the bell, we're talking about a graveyard bell. And graveyard bells, we can see through the little illustration here how these bells were made there so that if somebody accidentally got buried alive, which makes me a little scared that that used to happen enough, often enough, where they decided to make a mechanism to help people in danger of of having been buried alive. But that's the deal. The bell being saved by the bell, literally, the person in the coffin who was alive, but everybody thought was dead. They would actually have a cord to pull on to ring a little bell up top and so that people could maybe dig them out if they yeah if they were buried alive like that. And that's really scary because what are the chances that anybody's going to actually hear that bell if you're in the coffin in the ground? You have no idea if anybody is around up top or what they're doing or anything. Wow. And sadly, I haven't been able to find any references of people actually being saved by these bells, which makes me worry like, uh-oh, what if how many people were buried alive but couldn't get saved by those bells? Because since I didn't find any references to people really being saved by them, it makes me think that since the presumption was that people are getting buried alive, that a lot of people just stayed there until they weren't alive anymore. Anyway, pretty spooky. And like I said, I wonder if you're in a coffin, can you have any idea if anybody's even around listening for that bell? Because it's not like people are in graveyards 24/7 or anything like that. Which brings me to another idiom, the graveyard shift. And this one, it has been supposed that this term, which of course we use the graveyard shift to mean, oh, I'm working the shift overnight, like often 11 a.m. I mean 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. That would be called the graveyard shift if you're working overnight. And it's been supposed that this comes from people having to work the shifts at the graveyards to listen to the graveyard bells to see if they heard anyone or not. And that must be a really hard thing to do if you are working the overnight shift. If you got to stay awake the whole time, uh, because if you fall asleep, then somebody's ringing the bell to say I'm buried alive, and nobody hears them. It's all it's so creepy. Anyway, so that's yeah, the graveyard shift, and these days it is no longer connected to cemeteries or cemetery bells or anything like that. But um, yeah, we still hold on to the expression because well, most folks don't want to end up working the graveyard shift anyway. And that's graveyards are nice and spooky for Halloween too, which also to dig one's own grave, right? We talk about digging your own grave when you've done something, made like this big mistake, done some action that's going to seriously come and bite you in the ass eventually, like you did an action already that is going to cause future problems for you, then you dug your own grave. That's the saying. Like I think of, for instance, students skipping class a lot of times and not really trying to learn the materials, trying to avoid the learning. These students are digging their own graves, academically speaking, anyway. So that's just maybe because I teach, I think of that right away. But yeah, and it's a pretty scary thought. Digging your own grave. I wonder, yeah, how many people would really have um, yeah, the tenacity to go ahead and finish digging their own grave, and then you got to wonder who's going to bury you, right? It would be so hard to bury yourself. But anyway, yeah, that digging your own grave and it's just doing something that's going to come bite you in the ass later, pretty much. But it sounds so much spookier if we think about people physically actually digging their own graves. Eek. Eek, a little scary. And so getting caught red-handed, this also has some pretty dark roots to it. And of course, by red-handed, we mean with your hands covered with blood. And so this comes, you might be afraid this comes from being caught murdering a person, but luckily it's not quite that bad in the origins. Being caught red-handed, this was about it was illegal to butcher the livestock belonging to somebody else, right? So if you were caught red-handed, what that would mean you did is you went and butchered your neighbor's livestock. Like let's say you butchered one of their sheep or something like that, and then they caught you with the blood still on your hands, then you would pretty much automatically be found guilty of this. And so you had, yeah, that was it for you. You were caught red-handed. Everybody knew that you killed that sheep or that cow or whatever it was, and so you're pretty much automatically guilty. And yeah, and sadly, we can apply it to even darker stories, like I was mentioned murder earlier. That's, yeah, pretty bad. And so the final spooky idiom for Halloween that I wanted to talk to you about is, you ever hear somebody, oh, not over my dead body, as in that's something that they were just referring to, they will never let it happen as long as they're still alive, right? Over my dead body, right? That's what we say about something happening. That's the last thing you would ever want to happen. Oh, and we can talk about somebody else using that as well, meaning like, oh, my boss is really against our idea of for casual Fridays where we all get to dress down. So that's going to happen over his dead body, meaning it's not going to happen. But yeah, having something happen over one's dead body is certainly spooky, creepy, and Halloween worthy. So I wanted to end this little collection of spooky idioms with that one. And so thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate that. And please do give this video a like. Please drop a thumbs up on it. And if you're yeah, and if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please do consider subscribing. I would appreciate that very much. And yeah, um, so I'll get working right now on my next video. And until then, catch you around next time. Bye bye.